a lot of statistics show that LGBTQ folks use substances at a higher rate than their heterosexual counterparts. What do you think contributes to that? And like you said, I mean, the lack of safe spaces, I'm sure, does not help with that.
It does not. And I think what also contributes to that is trauma, right? So the LGBTQ community faces trauma in many different forms. We face outright aggression, microaggression, there's social pressure. We've been denied our human rights for a long time. We had to fight for the right for who we love to marry, right? Think about that for a moment and just think about that. Growing up knowing that you can't profess your love and marry the person that you love and start a family because of your sexual orientation. There's still places where being gay is illegal, in this day and age. And people know and they feel that, right? And so when people get bullied at school, churches tell us that we don't belong and that, they use derogatory terms, slurs hurled at you. And that gets even worse when you start looking at the transgender population, right? Because they're marginalized within a marginalized community. If you think about, I feel like I have partly a benefit being a male, right? So I can walk down the street, I can kind of blend in, right? A young trans woman who's early in her transition, I've seen it, can get on a city bus or walk into a Starbucks or walk into a Dunkin' Donuts and people laugh. Right. And it's these things that we just accept. All of these things create a ton of stress and trauma. The list, as I said, the list can go on and on. Some interesting facts, right? 28% of the LGBTQ youth, 40 of which that 20% are transgender, express feelings of depression most or all of the time in the past month. I want you to think about that number again. 28% of all youth, 40% are transgender. That number is 12% in their heterosexual peers. Wow. Right? 15.1% of LGBTQ adults, they had an alcohol or drug use disorder in the past year. The number for heterosexual peers, 7.8%. Right? And so the numbers don't lie. The numbers clearly speak that it's disproportionate among this population. And I believe a lot of things go back to trauma, right? But especially when you look at the LGBTQ community, I believe trauma both on a outright micro and subliminal level creates a lot higher risk for the LGBT community in terms of illicit substance, alcohol, and nicotine use.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, in healthcare, LGBTQ folks tend to experience big disparities when trying to get healthcare, and I'm sure that's no different with substance use treatment, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me about what kinds of disparities you see there?
A ton. One would be lack of resources, right? So here's another statistic. I'm a big statistics guy, so you'll have to forgive me if I quote some numbers here, right? So people that identify as LGBTQ+, they seek treatment 2.5 times higher than their heterosexual counterparts. But there's a lack of resources specific to their needs. I mean, when you think of traditional treatment, there's really a lack of culturally competent treatment out there for the LGBTQ+ population, even though there's evidence that supports specialized tracks will have better outcomes. So in a study by the National Institute by Drug Abuse, they showed that they followed a group of LGBTQ+ individuals that went through treatment with a specialized track and those that didn't. They had 60% better outcomes for individuals that attended a program with a specialized track, yet and still only 7% of treatment centers in the United States have that specialized track. So now that's not saying they don't get the LGBTQ individuals in there, it's that they're trying to fit them in a box with everyone else when, actually speaking, the trauma is different, right? The issues are different. It's much more violent, even in just the words, right? People driving by hurling slurs. And we're getting better as a community but we're nowhere near where we need to be.
Right. Always room for improvement. And
I mean, I can give you,
needed now.
yeah, I can even give you a personal example. One time I went to the hospital emergency room for something minor, right? I don't know. I think I may have needed some stitches on my hand or something. And during the initial like questionnaire that they asked me if I health screening, as opposed, now they didn't do that to anybody else that was in the emergency room. They didn't do that to anybody else that was seeking treatment. They did it directly after they asked me that question. And these are things, this is just one small thing that many individuals have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that happens with a lot of minority groups, unfortunately. But
it does. It's not limited to the LGBTQ plus population. I mean, and then when you throw someone that is open about their substance use in there too, now you're part of a double marginalized cop. You're marginalized in one way and then in another. So there's compounded stigma there.
And then everything just becomes about the substance use. You hurt your finger, oh, it's definitely related to substance use.
Absolutely. You were inebriated, you were getting high, you were doing this, you were doing that. And, really it's not about that. The thing that I love about working for Aware Recovery Care is that we treat every single person that comes through our door as an individual. Everybody's treatment is individualized, right down to their specific strengths, needs, abilities, and preferences. Everything that we can possibly do to tailor fit treatment to the individual, we do that. Because we believe that by addressing every individual's social determinants of health, we don't just treat addiction, we treat barriers to recovery. And by removing those barriers, that thereby lets people live a happy, more healthy, fruitful, substance-free life.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, you mentioned to me that you specifically match counselors to similar life experiences with the clients. Can you tell me how that works and how that helps?
Yeah, right. So every client that comes into Aware Recovery Care, their age, gender, and story match, right? And so their care team will have a peer, it's a blend of peer recovery support specialists, certified addiction counselors, and care coordinators who are actually the clinical linchpin that holds that team together. And what they do is they keep, they're the thread that flows through the eye of the needle of every provider, right? Making sure that there's no decisions made about the clients in isolation. So everybody's nothing for the client without the client. And so what happens with that is we take the work that is being done with clients in individual therapy, if they're in group therapy, working with their PCP, we carry those interventions out through into the home, and they are delivered by somebody that looks like the individual, somebody that talks like the individual, somebody that has walked through that individual's the stories are all very similar, right? And there's something magical about somebody helping you when they know exactly what you've been through, right? So we have empathy, sure. We have a lot of competent clinicians out there that can empathize with somebody. However, it's much different so let's just say we have a trans woman who's a sex worker, right? She's from the inner city and that's what her story is. We have people like that with that in our staff group. And you know what? And they've overcome, they've persevered, and they're walking their journey. And so there's really two types of counselors, clinician, and helping professionals. You have the wise sage on stage who wants to order the client around, tell the client, I know what you should do, sit down, be quiet, do this. And then you have a guide on the side. And that's somebody that walks along hand in hand with you along your journey. And that's what we do. Mm-hmm. That's because what we believe is that effective treatment, it really should be client driven and clinically guided, right? Mm-hmm. So addiction is like a car driving down a hill uncontrollably with no brakes at 1,000 miles an hour, right? A lot of places choose to medicate their clients, and which only treats the symptoms, right? It doesn't treat the underlying issues. However, when you treat the underlying issues, medication will slow the car down. Treatment teaches them how to drive the car. Right? We teach them how to just drive that car along a path to recovery and get to a really beautiful destination.
I like that metaphor.
Thank you.
So, with regards specifically to Connecticut, what kinds of drugs are you seeing the most of in Connecticut right now?
Yeah. So so this is really interesting, right? So for young gay males, it's that. So in terms of the LGBTQ plus population, I'm going to speak to right now. So in specific to the LGBTQ plus population, in the gay young males, it's methamphetamine without a doubt, right? That and combined with GHB, they're 12.2 times more likely to use meth than their heterosexual counterparts, which is, when you think about it, it's outrageous. And again, it's that party lifestyle. It's our safe spaces, the clubs, our safe spaces are the bars. Our safe spaces are what traditional individuals would not consider safe, right? And when you look at the places that that these drugs are accessible to, they're accessible in the bars. So it's not only you have access to alcohol, you have access to illicit drugs, you have access to, I'm a big fan of, I preach the word of tobacco products too. And so like, you have access to tobacco products. Think of all the, when you're in the club, everybody's standing outside smoking a cigarette. You know what I mean? People will often call marijuana a gateway drug. I believe it's nicotine. I believe nicotine opens the door to it gives you that first inclination that you can search for something outside of yourself and feel a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so with the young crowd, it's definitely methamphetamine and GHB. Older gay males, and adult gay males, they'll tend to gravitate towards alcohol. That I believe, that's an age disparity, right? That's something that comes with that's from that generation, right? Alcohol was acceptable. Alcohol was something that that individuals did. And a lot of times people don't realize that they've had a problem until they have a problem, right? And so when you look at lesbians are more susceptible to binge drinking and marijuana use disorders. Now, when you take that entire population and you group what their substance abuse demographics look like, the numbers are significantly higher with the LGBTQ plus population. And so just to give you like some compare and contrast, 39.1% of LGBTQ plus individuals have had a substance use or alcohol use disorder within the past year, as compared to 17.1% of straight individuals.
Yeah.
The numbers are just, they're dismal, right? And so, and what we need to do in the behavioral health field is, we need to realize that, right? We need to realize, and we need to have culturally competent, empathetic, warm individuals creating a safe space. Probably one of the biggest barriers for a provider to refer one of their clients to a treatment center is whether or not it's safe. Because we have a lot of people out here with clinical licensures that should not be in the field. And just because you have a license doesn't mean that, that you're a kind, caring, and empathetic person. And so we got a lot of people with licenses that probably should go back to their office, pack up their desk, and never see a client again. And then we have people in many other professions that don't even realize that they possess counseling skills, right? And so those are the people that we want to go get a clinical licensure. And so that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I have very strong opinions on this matter because I know the data. I've walked that life. I know what it is. I know what the trauma is. I know what the issues are. I know what the disparity is. And I'm really passionate about healthcare equity. I'm really passionate about access to quality treatment for all. However, there's a special place in my heart for marginalized communities in general, just because they're mistreated. Right? They're taught to live that they belong on the fringes of society. A lot of times, individuals from a marginalized community, they don't even know that they don't know there's another way. They think life is supposed to be this way. They think the nurse is supposed to double glove. They think church is supposed to tell them they don't belong. They think school is supposed to be bullied. They don't even realize that they have anxiety and depression because they think that's how they're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
That's a scary, scary thought, right? And so, and what ends up happening is another dismal statistic, right? 61% of transsexual individuals, transgender individuals, have put off getting routine PCP care because they've been mistreated by a healthcare professional.
Yeah. I mean, that's
They
rough.
would rather, when you think about that, they would rather be in pain and deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with rather than go get help because they've been mistreated.
Yeah.
And that comes from a lack of compassion on the medical community as well, right? It's not limited to behavioral health. It's across a whole spectrum.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who is experiencing addiction, now besides calling 211, which is a valid, thing to do,
Yeah.
what
Right.
are some ways that a person could access care and treatment?
Right. So there's a DMIS website, the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They have a lot of resources that are on there. And if somebody was to type in their browser, DMIS website, addiction services, there'd be a host of resources that would come up. There's actually a crisis text line. And if an individual types home to 741-741, they will be matched with an individual to text with that can offer them resources. And it's live, it's a real person on the other line. They patch you through and they'll walk you through steps that you need to go through. There's the National Association on Mental Illness, who will also help an individual walk through what they need to walk through. There's the National Drug Helpline. There's the Substance Abuse Mental Health, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. And then there's always Aware Recovery Care. And so I have the numbers for resources because that's a lot of information to absorb. And I'm going to put that in the chat so that everybody can have access to that. I am also going to put my direct email and my direct telephone number into the chat so that if anybody that's on this call or thinks they know somebody that might need help, don't be afraid to reach out. There's actually a really short window of time when somebody's going to go to treatment, right? And within that small window of time, if that individual is met with some roadblocks, chances drop significantly that they're going to get the treatment that they need.
I'll also drop all that information in the video description when I upload this as well.
Right.
So that will be helpful, I hope. Now, what if you know somebody who's struggling with addiction? How can you support them?
Yeah. And so approach the individual with love, right? Show them that you have unconditional support for them. Have some patience. Be prepared for resistance. And don't try to fix the problem, right? Don't try to give advice because you're going to be met with, they're going to look at you like an authority figure. And I think above and all is for the individuals that may be on this phone call that have a loved one suffering with addiction in any form or fashion, to get support for yourself. Right? That's really, really huge. Take care of yourself because it's just like the age-old analogy. If you're on an airplane and you have your child with you, if something goes wrong, put the oxygen mask on yourself. Because if you're not well for yourself, you can't be well for your loved one.
Exactly. Fill your cup first.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left, and I want to see if anybody has questions. Just yell them out or type them in the chat if you want to.
Hi, I don't really have a question. I just have a statement. I worked with Denny, many years ago. Many years ago. And I just wanted to validate the incredible journey I have seen. I want to cry. So proud of you.
I'm so
it's so long. It's been such, it's unbelievable. But I do want to talk to you separately, after I stop crying, because I do run the LGBTQ plus school. So let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm done. I love you.
No worries. All right, what else do we have? Were we all perfectly clear?
No, I have a question about.
Hey, I'm really, really good because I answered everybody's. Nobody has anything left to say, so
Amazing.
my job is done. Did you say you had a question yourself, Kim, or no?
Nope.
I think I heard somebody say they had one.
No, that wasn't me. Well,
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
I was actually lucky enough to work with Dennis myself. So you're not the only one on here, but he's incredible. I actually work for Gatehouse Treatment, and we've sent a lot of clients to Aware. So I just wanted anybody else on here who maybe wasn't familiar with their model to know that they truly do match people with the same criteria, same, strength, hope, and share story, everything that you can possibly imagine. If you have a client who is going through something, their admissions team is phenomenal. And right from the get-go, they pick that up. And they work with everybody, coordinators, nurses, the CRAs, everybody right down through the whole program, and make sure that that client is being met and their needs are being taken care of. And personally, my clients coming from Gatehouse Treatment, they're usually going through like a 30-day to 6-month program. So we're really fortunate to be able to set them up with Dennis's program at the end of the day, which is another year. So essentially you're giving somebody the gift of 1.5 years of recovery. But having Dennis in the community and doing outreach, man, he's a great guy, and it doesn't really get any better than Dennis. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. When I can honestly say that I do this work out of passion, right? And I do this work because I know it makes a difference in people's lives. And there's something magical and there's something beautiful about being able to help somebody get into treatment and help them start on a journey that can change the rest of their life and help them realize that there is another way to live.
Awesome.
I just got goosebumps talking about that. That's how passionate I am about this.
That's who we need in the field. That's awesome.
Hey, Dennis, I have a real quick question, and then I got to jump onto another meeting. You killed it, first of all, my friend. So I've been working in this field for a long time, putting people into treatment, and I've had the pleasures of experiencing working with mostly transgender females, and it is devastating, the stories that they tell. They want the help and like to go to detox. And when a detox, I don't understand. I'm trying to understand when a detox says, how do you identify? And when they answer, I identify as a female, but I still have male parts. Well, we're going to have to put you in the male side of the detox. And, if that's not a barrier and a setback, I really don't know what is.
So I just wanted to say again, right? That is a classic example of a lack of competence on the part of that institution, right? And that's exactly what I mean when I say that the trauma is different, because anybody that had an ounce of cultural competency would know that sexual orientation and gender identity has nothing to do with genitalia, right? It has nothing to do with a person's genitalia, has nothing to do with how they identify. And it has nothing to do with what their gender expression is, right? So that's another reason that this community gets marginalized, right? So you have I have a beard, right? I could look just like this and identify as a woman. And in terms of orientation, I'm a woman because that's what my soul tells me I am. I was born in the wrong body. Right?
Because some of these people you don't know.
It's just very devastating to them, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, and another thing too is proper use of pronouns and how to address an individual. For me personally, when I introduce myself to someone, I always say, "Hi, my name is Dennis. My pronouns are he, him, his. What are yours?" Because that takes the awkwardness out of the situation and it lets you know immediately how that individual would like to be addressed.
And it normalizes talking about pronouns.
It does. It does. And, you know, what I've seen is that's another thing, you know, I've seen young trans girls not be okay, but have to deal with being referred to as it, right? Like an inanimate object, right? You know, I've worked in treatment for many more years than I'd care to admit, right? I'm really of a certain age. I come from the age of having to write in a pen and paper chart. That's how long I've been in this field, right? So when you look at, you know, the types of things that even, you know, don't get me wrong, nobody gets in this field because they want to hurt people, right? We're caring and kind individuals. However, you have a lot of people that are not competent because of a lack of knowledge, right? And so the thing that I would encourage the behavioral and medical community to do is to brush up on that. Get yourself educated. You know, it doesn't take much to learn, and it doesn't take much to be compassionate.
So one thing I do want to plug is that actually I have a presentation that I give on behalf of Health Collective for the basics of cultural competency for healthcare providers. So if we have any healthcare providers on here who are interested in that, you can shoot me an email anytime. And as far as time goes, we are out of it, but I am very happy to take any emails at any time, as well as I'm sure Dennis is as well. So we're going to drop
email in the chat right now.
Yes. And also, I will be uploading this to our Facebook page, facebook.com/HGLHC, and we'll have the contact info in the description. All right. So thank you so much, Dennis. This was really informative, and I hope everybody here, thank you so much, everybody here, for coming.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone for taking the time out of your days to come listen to this very important and much overlooked topic.
All right. Have a great night, folks. Thanks
You as
so
well.
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.